we are running.
Going through hard times is never an attractive thing to do, but it's the only thing that can build more authentic faith. And for those of you who don't know me in the room, my name is Evan, and I help out here as part of the setup team and the leadership team. And for those of you who do know me, my name is still Evan. And about a year and a half ago, I remember where I was sitting right where you guys are now, and they were talking about the internship program that they have here, just like you guys heard earlier. And I was telling myself, man, that would be really cool to be part of that internship, but I got this full-time job, and I can't juggle both at the same time. I would have to leave my job in order to do that. And I can't do that. I got so many bills to pay, like my internet. So I suppressed that little tug in my heart and just kind of went on with my life. And then a few months later, they started talking about the internship again, looking for new applicants again. And I felt that same tug. And this time, I really felt it on my heart like I should have applied for it. And so, after a couple days of thinking about it, talking with people, and getting encouraged about it, I finally decided to apply, completely knowing that if the internship was something I wanted to do, I would have to leave my job to do it. And I didn't have a plan B for it. And low-key, I was really hoping I didn't get the internship because I was that scared of leaving my job, right? And then I got the internship. And that's when the fear actually started to set in. I told myself, if I did get the internship, I would leave my job, right? And I was so scared because I would be living in a day-to-day lifestyle of not knowing what was next. I only had a limited amount of money to work on, and I knew I would be living like that, and I lived like that for 5 months without a job and no source of income. And here's a pro tip. If you're renting an apartment and you have to pay for rent, a job is a really good thing to have. So, but the crazy thing was, the very thing that I valued, my career, was getting in the way of the life God was calling me to live. A life driven by authentic faith. And I think that's something that we tend to forget. That we often want God to invite us into these awesome faith-driven kind of lifestyles, but we don't want to give up anything, any of the problems that get in the way of that. And sometimes we don't even recognize those problems in the first place. Like for me, whenever I used to get stressed, anxious, or frustrated, I would often turn to music to listen to because that's what I always did. And for those of you who know me, know I listen to a very wide variety of genres of metal. I would always use metal as a consistent escape. But after a long season of doing that, and with many talks with people, I came to the realization that during the hardest points of my life, I was putting more faith in my music than I was in God. And because of that, it was actually preventing me from fully living in authentic faith. And that's where I think we mess up the most, is we tend to let our problems get in the way of living our lives by faith. And maybe for you, the problem is not metal, and actually it probably isn't. But maybe it's the relationship you have with that certain someone that's become the problem for you. Or maybe it's your schoolwork. Or maybe it's the career that's become the problem. Or maybe you're just way too comfortable where you are now that's become the problem. And how many of you in here have seen the movie, The Polar Express? I love that movie. I love that movie. And I think that movie, I love it because I think it paints a perfect picture of how God invites us to go on these awesome journeys with Him. And here's why. So the movie starts out with this boy who's laying in bed and he's kind of wrestling with the idea of whether or not Santa exists. And he finally falls asleep when he's suddenly woken up by this train that's parked itself in front of his house. And in confusion, he grabs his stuff and walks outside to investigate when he's greeted by Tom Hanks, a train conductor, who steps off the train. He steps off the train and meets the boy where he's at. And while they're standing there looking at each other, the train conductor asks him something really profound. He asks, "Well, are you coming?" And I know I can't be the only one in the room who's been in that same spot that boy was. I can't have been the only one who's been asked, "Are you coming?" And I know that because God asks us all that same question, and He asks us all the time. I've been too scared or too apprehensive to go somewhere that I was being asked to go, even if it could have been a good thing for me. And maybe some of us haven't accepted that invitation from God. And maybe you haven't accepted because you were invited when your parents were going through a divorce, or you had a really rough breakup, or you got laid off, or there's a death in the family, Or maybe you're just feeling so overwhelmed by school that you found it so impossible to believe. Well, let me say this. It's in those moments when we find it near impossible to believe that God invites us to live a life driven by authentic faith. Going through hard times is never an attractive thing to do, but it's the only thing that can build more authentic faith. Pure gold put through fire comes out proved pure. Authentic faith put through suffering comes out proved authentic. But it's those moments, those hard times, that we see God standing in the fire when he asks us, "Are you coming?" These past couple of weeks, we've been looking at the life of Abraham and how he lived a life of authentic faith when he's been asked that same question. And throughout Abraham's entire life, he's been promised things by God. One of those was by having a son. The only thing is that Abraham allowed his current problems to get in the way of his current promises. Like the problem that his wife, I don't know, couldn't have kids. And honestly, if I was in Abraham's shoes, sandals, I would be pretty upset at God. Like, God, why are you promising me a son when my wife is barren? You should have probably given me a better wife. I don't know, God. You know? And last week, we discussed what happened when he actually did that, when he actually went forward with that. He slept with his own mistress so she could bear him a child instead of his own wife, even after God promised him his own son. Now let's fast forward a bit. Abraham's wife, Sarah, eventually bore him the son that God promised him. But when Abraham was 100 years old. And some of you may be thinking like, wow, I just love happy endings. Isn't that great? Well, that's because we're not telling the story yet. When Abraham's son Isaac was about 15 years old, God asked Abraham to sacrifice him. It says in Genesis chapter 22, sometime later God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham, here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." And while Isaac and Abraham were in a field somewhere having a grand old time doing father and son things, God came down and was like, "Yo, Abraham, your son, the one you love, yeah, he needs to be sacrificed. Cool, I'm out." And just deuced, you know? And God even acknowledged how much Abraham loved his son. And even after he asked him to be sacrificed, Abraham still obeyed. But God didn't ask Abraham to do that for no reason. He asked him to do that to make sure Abe didn't put his promise above the promise giver. He was making sure that Abraham didn't put the very thing that he valued most above the one who gave it to him in the first place. Later, God tells Abraham of the mountain he wants him to go to, and the trip to the mountain was about a 3-day journey. And if I were in Abraham's shoes, those would have been the most dreadful 3 days of my life. The idea of having to sacrifice my own son would probably kill me on the inside. But I don't think Abraham thought like that. I don't think he had the same kind of mentality. In fact, I think it was the opposite. I think Abe had a significant amount of faith, so much so that he believed that God wouldn't actually allow Isaac to be sacrificed. And there are 2 key parts in this passage of scripture that hint at this. The first one is when Abe finally reaches the mountain, and it continues in Genesis. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servant, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Notice how he says, "We will worship, and then we will come back to you." We will go up, and then we will come back down. And the second hint is when they actually reach the spot of sacrifice. It continues. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father?" "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and the wood are here," Isaac said. "But where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the 2 of them went on together. Abe never told his son that God asked him to be the lamb. And God never told Abraham that Isaac wasn't going to be the lamb. And here's the thing. Abe had faith that it wasn't going to be Isaac. And he only had that kind of faith because of the trials, the tests, and the tribulation that he and his faith have been through before. Abraham's faith has been put through the fire and the flames time and time again, and that's why he had that kind of faith. And when God sends out that invitation, when he asks you, "Are you coming?" he's not asking us because he wants us to suffer. He's asking us because he wants us to have an authentic faith. And when that boy from the Polar Express was asked, "Are you coming?" he was scared, and he didn't want to go on that train. And I know it's a scary thing to say yes to that question because I've been there. I was there when I gave up my job for the internship. I was there when I was giving up the things I value most. But you know what? The Polar Express would have been really boring if it ended with him saying no and the train leaving. Just like how our life would be very boring if we kept saying no and we kept watching that train leave us. But the movie didn't end there. So something must have happened. Something must have clicked in the boy's head where he realized there was much more at stake to leave than to go. And so he chased that train and he managed to climb aboard and he went on the journey of a lifetime. He made some awesome friends. He drank the best hot chocolate and a few times he almost died. But that's besides the point, right? But towards the end of the movie, he finally gets to see Santa Claus sitting in his sleigh. And there's a whole crowd surrounding Santa, and the kids kind of stand in the back, and everyone in the crowd is talking like, man, these sleigh bells, the sound they're making is absolutely beautiful. But this kid, he can't hear any of the sleigh bells. And so one of the sleigh bells falls off the sleigh and rolls at his feet, and he goes out and picks it up and kind of shakes at his ear, and he still doesn't hear anything. And in a moment of frustration, the kid says, I believe. I believe. And it was then that he heard the bells ring. But it wasn't until his declaration of belief that he heard the bells. And if it weren't for the journey he went on and all the kind of stuff he had to get through to get there, he would have never been able to make that kind of declaration. And all of us in this room are on that train. We're all on that same journey that the kid was. We're all just in different places. And some of you are able to yell, I believe, and that's awesome. While others are in the middle of the train ride sipping on that hot cocoa. And some of us are staring at the train, too scared to even get on. And even some of us still are laying in bed, awake, wondering if we could still believe. The only difference is it's not Tom Hanks who's asking us, are you coming? It's God who's asking us, and he's always asking us. So if you miss the train the first time around, don't worry. It'll come back again, and again, and again. The boy's story, like Abraham's, didn't end when things became near impossible. In fact, that's where it started. They stepped into those moments away from the fear, and they both accepted their invitation. And because they did, they were able to live with more of an authentic faith. And what if we decide to be like Abraham, willing to give up our most valued possessions turned problems to live more authentically? What if we decide to go on a journey of a lifetime even when it looked like it wouldn't be? What if we decide that we're going to put our faith in God and God alone? What do you think you could do if you lived a life driven by authentic faith? What do you think would happen if just a few more people followed you, and then a few more, and a few more, until all of us in this room decided to step into that fire to live with authentic faith, the kind of faith that is only proved pure because it's been through the fire, the kind of faith that goes, God, I don't know why you're asking me to sacrifice my son, why you're asking me to get on that train, why you're asking me to quit my job, to leave my home, to leave my boyfriend, my girlfriend, why my parents are getting divorced, but I don't know, but I will go on this journey with you, and I will put my faith in you. Imagine how different our life could be if we decide to step into that fire and out of the fear. Then imagine all the other lives beyond ours that can be changed because of it. Imagine the stories of triumph we could tell, the journeys we could go on, and all the places we'll go, all because we said yes when God asked, are you coming?
What are you going to do with the time you have? I say that if you don't reposition yourself, you could miss the best time.
have got to change the way we function. We have got to change the way we deal with issues. And the reason that you have to begin to reposition the way you think and the way you function and the way you feel is that we many times are stuck between the lines of limited thinking and limited people and limited ideas and limited philosophies, and there's something creative down inside of you saying, let there